2017, I was in the fraternity house. Mom always said nothing good comes from the fraternity house. But I had four friends that got into Bitcoin at that time. And, if not for them, I would have never kind of came across it. Miami Bitcoin 2021 conference that led me to really being a part of the community, understanding how great the people are, just the multidisciplinary aspect of Bitcoin and that, I could fit in just being me. And eventually found my way into Bitcoin entrepreneurship. Being an engineer, I fell in love with the scarcity, right? And the STEM aspect of it. But being a people person, I fell in love with how Bitcoin changes you, right? It was my phone calls with my mom at 10 p.m. at night and badgering her right on my walks and before her coffee at 7 in the morning, talking about.
Welcome back to the Orange Peel Podcast. I'm your host, Nicki, and today's episode is about something that doesn't get nearly as much attention as it should. We're going to talk about the role of students in the Bitcoin movement. We talk a lot about Bitcoin treasury companies and long-term hodlers and even some governments adopting Bitcoin like in El Salvador. But the real grassroots action happens with us, happens with Gen Z. So my guest today is right in the middle of it. I'm joined by Kyle Knight, who is a member of BTC Students and the Bitcoin Culture Hub, and we're going to talk all about how college students and building this network can really, really be a key driving factor in this movement. So this is all about building the next generation of Bitcoiners. And if you're a student listening to this right now, this conversation is going to show you how you can get involved, why it matters, and why Gen Z is in the perfect position to lead. Let's get into it. Kyle, thanks so much for coming on. I'm so excited to get to know you.
Thank you for having me in the wonderful introduction. Happy to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. So why don't we start by, you just sharing your Bitcoin journey? When did you get into it, etc.?
It's always nice to go back and be supporting students considering I found Bitcoin as a student. So 2017, I was in the fraternity house. Mom always said nothing good comes from the fraternity house. But I had four friends that got into Bitcoin at that time. And, if not for them, I would have never kind of came across it. And so it was fall of 17 in October. I was trading on Coinbase, like ETH and Litecoin. I had no idea what I was doing, right? But they were smart. They always said hodl. And it was some years past 2020, a couple of them a year older than me. At the very bottom of COVID, I had found out one of them went all in. And that was kind of my signal that this was somebody I looked up to. This was somebody I knew, had intelligence, and they were kind of the pioneer at the school. It made me think twice. And that really started kind of my path down the rabbit hole. It was me saying yes to go into the Miami Bitcoin 2021 conference that led me to really being a part of the community, understanding how great the people are, just the multidisciplinary aspect of Bitcoin and that, I could fit in just being me. And eventually found my way into Bitcoin entrepreneurship, back to school, getting my MBA at UCLA and starting their Bitcoin club, and now founding the Bitcoin Culture Hub.
Awesome. Well, it sounds like you've had a bit of a fun journey there. I think you're the only one I've talked to who found Bitcoin as a student. So it's awesome to see that, like you were so young when you discovered it. So with that, then, why don't you talk a little bit about, you mentioned Bitcoin entrepreneurship. Like, what are you doing with that?
Yeah. So I co-majored, I was a mechanical engineer and entrepreneurship co-major. I loved entrepreneurship. And outside of school or after graduating, I didn't know exactly what startup I wanted to join, if that was the right path for me. And so at first I went into consulting, and that was not, I'm a people person. I love clients. That wasn't it. And after Miami 2021, I was looking for ways to get involved with Bitcoin. And me being a people person, I trended towards the culture. And so that was a site called Scarcity, which is kind of like Bitcoin eBay. They sell Bitcoin goods and collectibles like art for Bitcoin. And I kind of just reached out on Twitter, offering to work for free, and that I was interested in the space. I had experience, and they let me join as kind of an intern. That was, and I'll tell a quick side tangent, the one that inspired me, who went all in March of 2020, told me he wouldn't have taken that opportunity because it wasn't paid. And I think that lesson for me, understanding what I wanted and where I was at in my career, this was an opportunity I really wanted to take advantage of. And, even though somebody said that they may not have pursued it, I was very grateful to be given that chance. And so I became their head of business operation, really got to understand, it's just kind of like the butterfly effect is my favorite thing in the world. One little DM can lead to me being here today. But as head of business operations, got introduced to the whole global network of artists and creators, as well as collectors, really passionate people that were really diverse, community. Eventually introducing me to Bitcoin trading cards and the founder Aladdin there, which they make learning about Bitcoin, fun and familiar, very art oriented. So still on brand. I enjoyed working in both of those companies, but I knew that I wanted to start something of my own. I knew what my audience was, which was Gen Z. I grew up wanting to be a kindergarten teacher and eventually wanted to kind of scale my impact. And beyond 30 students in a classroom every year, it was with Bitcoin, how could I affect the whole world and those to come? I'll go back to being a people person. I founded the Bitcoin Culture Hub, which is really about empowering others, right? And we don't actually sell a service. We provide access to and connection within Bitcoin. So really supportive of others that are creating within Bitcoin, whether it's content creators like yourself and those sharing education to service providers to anybody that's really trying to get more involved and participate within Bitcoin. I'm here for you and I'm here to support that. So it brings me a lot of joy to build every day.
That's super cool, man. That's so cool. I mean, the best thing about Bitcoin, at least that I'm seeing, is that it's allowed so many people to do what they want and do what they're passionate about as a career. So it's so cool to see that, you get to take all your skills, being a people person and wanting to connect others and use Bitcoin as kind of a tool. So with that, then, what does Bitcoin culture mean to you?
Ooh, so all the things that made me kind of fall in love, being an engineer, I fell in love with the scarcity, right? And the STEM aspect of it. But being a people person, I fell in love with how Bitcoin changes you, right? It was my phone calls with my mom at 10 p.m. at night and badgering her right on my walks and before her coffee at 7 in the morning, talking about Bitcoin. And me being within the Bitcoin community really shaped me at a pivotal time in my life, right? As I was kind of growing up to be a more confident, more capable, more loving and compassionate individual, somebody that thinks in the long term, somebody that um, really appreciates proof of work and quality over quantity. And, I was definitely a quantity person. I was get me everything. I want it all. And now I understand you don't need that. And so Bitcoin culture to me is a reminder of all that it means to be a Bitcoiner and as a self, right? And a community. And I study the Renaissance, right? And Medici, and I am in pursuit of being, the godfather of the Renaissance, like all over again. Cultural patronage, supporting the arts, the education, being there for one another. Bitcoin being sound money gives us the opportunity to give back in ways that fiat did not. And it's a privilege. So I love Bitcoin culture. I'm working on the definition.
No, I mean, that was great, man. Like, you sound really, really passionate. So it's so inspiring to see that. I think as, Gen Z and as someone who's currently in college and thinking about career paths and what it is that I want to do moving forward, because I'm graduating this time next year. So I only really have a year left to kind of, get it together and lock in. So it's really interesting to see that Bitcoin opened up an entirely new career path for you then. When you were in college, when you first, went down the Bitcoin rabbit hole, did you ever picture that it was something you would do as a career?
No. So I love fun. And people grill me on this, and I'm like, I want to have a career in fun, and consulting is not that, right? But I didn't see Bitcoin as something that offered me the opportunity to, build and grow a business, right? So no, is kind of that short answer.
It's crazy. It's so crazy to think about. So you do a lot of work with Gen Z, I assume, with students and obviously the Culture Hub. Do you think that Gen Z responds better to seeing Bitcoin as painted as something that's cultural rather than just like an asset or a money?
That's a really interesting question. That is a great question. I thought you were going to go, are they more receptive to Bitcoin, but are they more understanding of Bitcoin as a culture? I actually don't. I actually think older individuals, and I will say it depends on your depth within Bitcoin, right? Your how far down the rabbit hole you are and how long you've spent in Bitcoin. I think older individuals tend to have that. I'm at the latter part of my life. I'm appreciating what this is doing for the problems that, our society kind of put forth in front of those younger generations, right? And they can lean into the cultural aspect, understanding that the financial part is there for them. They're kind of set. The younger side, they're looking for wealth creation, right? That's their first prerogative. Mostly, you do get some individuals who are freedom oriented, sovereignty oriented. They believe in the decentralized future. I think those are fewer in between, but we're very open minded, Gen Z. And so I think I find that Gen Z picks up Bitcoin culture a little quicker, right? Than, my mom, which took 8 years.
Yeah, and the reason why I ask this is because, like you said, we're a very open-minded generation, and you can really see that with, a lot of the things that are happening worldwide right now. Gen Z is very progressive. We're very like social justice oriented, and the way I see it, Bitcoin kind of fits almost like a puzzle piece into what we're fighting for, right? Because it's objectively the most fair money that we have right now. So yeah, I mean, I just wanted to get your thoughts on what you were observing. Have you tried to orange pill or try to get more of your peers into Bitcoin?
It's hard. I don't think they could have avoided it. I am such a vibrant Bitcoiner. I wear it on my chest. My bedroom looks like I'm a 18-year-old kid. I got, posters of Bitcoin stuff all over. I have. And so our friend group, it goes to show we have 7 best friends, guys. And there was the one that orange pilled me and then myself. And the two of us have been very pro, Bitcoin, very vocal advocates of it for many years. Here as an educational resource, a success story, showing our proof of work in the space. And the others, it's been interesting. You see what they latch onto and when they do, right? Some of them, I think everybody's off zero, right? I think. I've grilled them to get off zero, so they better be. But others have fully adopted it, right? And they're not participants in the Bitcoin community. They're not participants in the culture, but they certainly understand why Bitcoin is of value to them. And I appreciate the open mind. I also appreciate the risk averse nature of some of my other friends. And it's, a little hard to grasp sometimes. I'm from the Midwest, right? We didn't necessarily grow up around innovation. And if you're rooted in that mindset, it can be hard to adopt something that's as disruptive as Bitcoin.
Yeah, it's interesting that you brought up like a geographical aspect to it because I never really thought that it would differ so much based on where you're located, but I think after moving to Australia from Seattle, it's a totally different culture. It's a totally different culture, not only because it's a new country, but it's a different popular industry. Like Seattle's very tech, so very innovative, like you said, and Melbourne, there's not much tech here. It's more consulting and education, so it's really interesting to see the difference in when I talk to my friends in both places and how they receive Bitcoin. So I wanted to ask then, when you start talking to your friends about Bitcoin, what do you think is the angle that works best to help them understand?
These are great questions because I think of my friends and I'm like, these are fun conversations. A lot of it tends to be the scarcity, right? So we understand being, I'm closer to my 30s than a man, 20s. And we've seen the prices increase on us. We felt that to say, there's only 21 million Bitcoin. There's 60 million millionaires in the world, right? Not every millionaire, if they wanted to, could buy one. People grasp that. And the issue is it interesting, right? Is it enough? So sometimes you have to push around and be like, look, Saquon Barkley's a Bitcoiner. Look, the people that you recognize in pop culture, or you're interested in real estate, let me share with you this other perspective. I'm big on meeting people where they're at. And so it is no one size fits all, but scarcity is typically where I start. A lot of people believe in its ability to create, fix the money, fix the world. It's up on the banner. And I'm a big believer in that. There's a lot of work to do, but to those that care about social change, you can approach it with that lens, right? It's a solving the root, not a band-aid to the problems that we face in society. So it's not a one size fits all, but fortunately, there's a lot of options to choose from.
I didn't know that Saquon Barkley was a Bitcoiner, so that's awesome to know. Which that reminds me of something that happened a bit earlier this year. So Drake released "What Did I Miss," right? And one of his lyrics references Bitcoin. So at this time, I was like still very new, but I was starting to talk to my friends about it. And once they heard that song, they texted me and they're like, "Okay, Drake knows ball. Like, what's Bitcoin? What's Bitcoin?" So it was just so funny. I mean, that was so funny that that happened. I had a question in mind and I'm totally blanking on what I was going to ask.
It doesn't take much. And for me, what the Bitcoin Culture Hub is meant to be is the front door, right? And because it's not a one size fits all, I had a conversation with American Hodl, who's a longtime Bitcoiner, and this was at our very beginning launch, August 1st, at Bitcoin is for Everyone conference. He had said that if you want to build a platform that's going to service 3 billion Bitcoiners, right, it can't be one size fits all. The Texas Bitcoiner is different than the Portland one, which is different than the Indian one, right? And I think my approach has been you don't yet know what you're going to be interested in when it comes to Bitcoin, right? Some people don't care about the money, and that's okay, right? Maybe you're interested as an engineer, maybe you're interested as its affects policy, right? And so my goal is just to deliver you the experience of immersive, exploration, right? And it's rich, it's fun, it's something you can feel and touch. And I think a lot of professors when I was at university were like, there's nothing to do in Bitcoin, right? What are we going to push our students to Bitcoin for if there's nothing to do? And I'm like, you're so wrong. You're so wrong. But that's for another time.
What are some of the ways that, you showcase Bitcoin through, on your website or through the Culture Hub?
Yeah, I mean, it's so I'm a big Bitcoin collectibles guy. There's the jersey is from the Indy 500 race back in 2021. This, you know, I have cards everywhere, Bitcoin trading cards. I guess I can show, but this is what I've been carrying around at conferences, and so this to me
Awesome.
is something that like Bitcoiners recognize, other people may not, but it typically puts a smile on people's faces when they see it. If you do recognize it, that story again can come at a later time. But on the Culture Hub, we feature artifacts, which includes from literature to the art to anything physical to creators, right? So if you're trying to discover who's creating within Bitcoin, you can find them and what they're creating. Communities. So if you're interested in joining a community, whether it's local or global or a product, similar to Facebook groups, if it's events, so you want to see what's going on in Bitcoin, everything that's the culture, right? And it doesn't cost any money. You can, for the first time ever, there were a few problems I set out to solve, which was when I orange pill people, there's nowhere to send them. And so they churn, right? You could send them to Twitter. You could send them to river.com/learn. You could send them to, Preston Pish's podcast. There's so many great resources, but they're not sticky. And that's one of the problems that I set out to build was to be, whoever you meet, an 18-year-old or my grandparent, I can send them here. They can feel comfortable on the platform. And so it's a safe way to go down the road. The other thing I hope to do was it took me, 8 years to become this level of a Bitcoiner, right? How can I shrink that from 8 years to 15 minutes? Right? How can I expedite your path down the rabbit hole and make you feel excited and confident in who you are as a Bitcoiner rapidly? And the last part was kind of when you represent who you are as a Bitcoiner, it's difficult. You say it verbally, you're recalling, I like the white paper and how, you could go Laszlo's pizza and the Fed and buy Bitcoin and all these different aspects, but they don't always come through to the individual you're trying to communicate that to. And so for the first time, you can have a profile that is of what you like, right? By bookmarking stuff on the site, you can kind of build out, this is what I am passionate about. This is what makes me a Bitcoiner. And I find that fun.
No, you've got a really, really interesting approach to solving those problems. Because, like you said, there is nowhere to send people. When I talk to my friends, I tend to send them to like the Bitcoin Standard or the Sailor series and, Broken Money. All these things are very dense and they're not the best for, just trying to give people a way to get their feet off the ground. So, I mean, it's awesome what you've done with the Culture Hub. Do you have any like favorite works that you've showcased on there?
So we're soft launching tomorrow. So we're actually one day ahead. The site is live, bitcoinculture.com. I'm sure by the time it comes out, you can go see it. But at the moment, it's just seeded with some of my favorite artists. So Crypto Graffiti's a big one. I'm a big fan of pretty much anything of his. I'll take one more. I'll take one more down. This is this is on the website. It's called Gradually Then Suddenly. And it's just a beautiful representation of Bitcoin against all the other forms of fiat. So Crypto Graffiti is a social activist artist, and his work goes beyond Bitcoin, and I love that. I find that beautiful, and so he's someone I like to shout out.
No, that's awesome. That's such a cool piece of work too. Um, yeah, by this time that this episode rolls out, you will have launched. So I will add links. Very, very cool. Let's shift gears a little bit. Let's talk about your work with the BTC students. And then also I want to ask you about DC because I've been seeing all of the pictures that you posted with, Halston and Ella. And I had so much FOMO. I had so much FOMO from not being able to go because it looked like so much fun. But yeah, I mean, tell us about your time. What was the conference like?
Yeah, so I think that was maybe my 15th, and so it's fun to kind of now understand. You can kind of like, this is what I like, this is what I don't like. These are the good and the bad. And so this was the inaugural BTC and DC event, held by George Washington University's brand new Bitcoin Academic Center. And so anytime it's a first event, you're going to go through some learnings. And I loved on the speaker lineup, the attendees, the Kennedy Center, very, just beautiful environment to talk about Bitcoin and policy. Saylor had a unique speech. He normally doesn't talk about tokenomics or tokenizing society. And so that was, for the many times I've heard him speak, something different, which I do appreciate. I'm glad that he doesn't say the same thing. I had a chance to go with Ella and the Cornell Bitcoin Club to visit Strategy's headquarters. And so that was really exciting just to be with current students, seeing Ella kind of in her second week at Strategy as director of Bitcoin advocacy. Very exciting to see her just tapping her ID card and getting like the green light. It's amazing. So that was cool. At that tour at Strategy, CJ, who's involved in the capital market side of what a Strategy does, and also a friend, he was a Harvard MBA, and Cornell, or Ella, connected us when we had started our MBA programs. He was like, Kyle, you have to come to the happy hour after. And that was, another day later, I was like, fine, and it's fun. They're building a great community. They have the Culture Hub. I got to spend the day working inside of their headquarters, totally free. And there's orange Bitcoin bathroom doors. There's orange pillars and pillows and stickers, and the, cloth on their pool tables orange. They've really outdone themselves as an office space. But I also had the chance to go to PubKey. So also, by the time this comes out, community will know that I'm joining PubKey, is supporting their event side of things. And they're opening up a 12,000 square foot location in Washington, D.C. For those that don't know, PubKey is kind of the Bitcoin bar, you could say, heard around the world. They are here located in New York, very close to NYU and Washington Square Park. And it's like this dive bar, 2,000 square feet. And so for them to open up 12,000 square feet in DC, the Bitcoin Policy Institute is headquartered there now. They have a podcast room. They have an 85-person restaurant. It's like, this is Bitcoin now. Like we have a real venue. Not that the dive bar isn't, but we love to speak about. And so they're opening up in about a month, and getting to go with Jeff Booth, and I think Preston was there, and a handful of Adam Back, Samson Mao, just seeing these Bitcoin contributors, these builders, walk around this yet to be constructed but soon to be finished, bar and restaurant that I know is going to be home to many experiences. That was very beautiful. It felt like there's a strong culture in DC that's growing, and so I'm excited for anybody that's going to be around there.
That's awesome. And congratulations on PubKey. I mean, it's so, so cool to have like almost a physical home for Bitcoiners because, things are really, really solidified once there's an actual place to be like, yeah, this is our center. So that's really, really awesome. Let's talk about your work with students. You mentioned, you knew Ella and you had a chat with like the Cornell Bitcoin Club, but you're also a part of BTC students. So what's that all about?
Yeah. So Bitcoin students, it's hard enough being a Bitcoiner, right? And feeling alone. Bitcoin students, it's a community, a global community of people who were in academia. I guess I can still consider myself a BTC student, even though I'm graduated, that had a passion and have a passion for Bitcoin. It was founded by Ella Huff and Arsh Malu, and Arsh is now at the Human Rights Foundation. Ella, of course, at Strategy. There are 700 plus clubs, 70 countries, I think. And it's all about, supporting one another and giving representation to students, right? I am a big believer in Gen Z being a very active contributor to society very soon. And I think it's the student like yourself and everybody that's active, whether you're high school, undergraduate, graduate student who is dedicating energy to learning about Bitcoin, applying their courses and what's being taught, with a Bitcoin perspective. The Bitcoin Students Network is that community of peers that are going to help champion you in your Bitcoin journeys. My role with the Bitcoin Students Network was creating UCLA's Bitcoin Bruins, running their first ever Bitcoin Summit. So there's the Fink Center for Finance, which I love, Larry being a big contributor to Bitcoin nowadays at BlackRock with IBIT. I was like, we gotta start something, and started from nothing. It was 0 to 150 people to learn about Bitcoin in a room together on UCLA's campus. And that, for me was just the start. But I'll tell you, being a Bitcoin student, you will, stick out like an orange thumb, right? It's your peers are sometimes going to challenge you, and your faculty will challenge you, and the, school will challenge you on your beliefs. And so having the student network is just, it grounded me. It kept me in truth and confident in my next steps.
When you started the Bitcoin Bruins, how was the initial reception? I mean, were there others on campus who were Bitcoiners, or was it just kind of, you and your friend?
You could say it was just me. It was me and my friend. I was known as a Bitcoiner, right? Walking through the halls, I made it. I'm very confident and happy to share. So Anderson's pillars are drive change, think fearlessly, and share success. And for me, sharing Bitcoin embodies all those, right? And my being on campus was to share the success of Bitcoin, right? By the end of 2025, when I graduated, which would have been May, Bitcoin's price was on the rise again. We were talking about it in our classes to a certain extent. And so people kind of came out of the woodworks, but it was amazing. It was people going to Apple as a product manager that, very capable and invest in assets, likely equities, but nevertheless, we're like, where can I buy it? Like that was the question that they had. And I'm a big believer in, being a friend, right? I'm consistently will be there for anybody in their personal life, whether they're interested in Bitcoin or not. But, with Bitcoin, you can't make assumptions or expectations about where your peers are at. UCLA and Anderson did not have a great Bitcoin community. They had a blockchain community. They have a Bruin crypto investment club. They have Bitcoin courses, or sorry, crypto courses. I wish they had a Bitcoin course, but it was an uphill battle.
It's so interesting that, you even had like blockchain clubs and crypto courses, because that's not at most schools at all. I mean, where I'm at, we haven't got anything. We've got a few clubs that are tech focused, and they will do workshops on the blockchain. But the idea of having a Bitcoin only club, albeit it's awesome to have a network of people that believe the same things as you do and meet other student Bitcoiners, because as you said, obviously it gets pretty lonely to be a student Bitcoiner. It seems so daunting, and it's so interesting to hear that it was just you in the beginning. But you're right. Like, you do got to be a friend. You have to do those things to kind of put yourself out there and do it for the greater cause. So as time went on, then did more and more people start coming to you, like curious about what Bitcoin is, and if so, like what were some of the things that you did to kind of convince them?
Yeah, they did, and I would say convince is a strong word, assuming that we were successful. The student group was learning, I mean, through their masters in business, that the world is not great economically, in a financial position. They're taking on all this debt, trying to find a job in a market that, it's really hard to find work in. And they were slowly opening their minds. And I'll share this quick story. To give you an example of just what I was up against, we can appreciate even just opening the minds was a great win. So I'm in a financial statements analysis class, and we had to run analysis on financial statements, and we got to choose the company. I chose strategy. I love the professor. And so we had a good rapport on Bitcoin and talking about it openly in class. But I made it my prerogative that I wanted to present on this homework. And as I'm sharing to the class that Bitcoin is going to drive strategy's treasury from $60 billion to $600 billion over the next decade, somebody in the audience of a 60-person class yells out, "Can we talk about a real business?" Right? And that's the amount of friction that we have is people are just closed off. One of the other professors was teaching that Bitcoin's value is derived from the value of the black market, right? And the local economy, right? That's just another student had to tell me to be nicer. And I was like, I'm not being rude. Like, she's just wrong, right? It's not, I'm not, maybe I could have been nicer. I'm not sure. But be nice to your professors. Everybody's learning. But I think it came down to hosting the events, being vocal about it. When I saw the ones that were putting in the effort to ask questions and be curious. And so I made, an effort to be there for them to answer their questions. I think the biggest thing, and this is where we lose people, is the follow up, right? Is it my responsibility to follow up with the individual or theirs to ask more questions? And if I was a better orange pillar or a better friend, I'd follow up. And so I think that's where you get people to open their minds. And it's that consistency checking in that might convert them fully.
That's a great note to shift focus to broader Gen Z, I think. What what advice do you have for Gen Z who's kind of interested but like still on the fence about whether or not they want to invest their time and energy into understanding Bitcoin?
Yeah, small steps, right? You don't know where they're going to lead. And so taking action. And the first thing is, of course, buying Bitcoin, right? You could, in theory, go your entire life never being a member of the Bitcoin community if you just bought Bitcoin, but that's no fun. So don't do that. But asking questions, right? It doesn't take a lot of effort to ask your family, your friends, the professors, the DM somebody, right? On LinkedIn, on Twitter that runs a company that you're interested in. Asking questions is a great way to really kind of sift through the noise or your emotions. And so that's where I'd start. I'm a big believer in doing personal work. Life is about, at the end of the day, a little bit of personal growth. Right? Understanding that Bitcoin is going to be a journey. You're going to be on a journey of personal growth, whether you like it or not. Bitcoin is a great guardrail for putting you on a really strong path to being the best individual you can be. So looking intrinsically and understanding what you want out of yourself is also a great way to decide how you want to get involved.
It's interesting that you framed Bitcoin as something for personal growth because when I first started getting into this, I literally thought, it's just reading a few books and then buying some Bitcoin and that's pretty much it. And then obviously like never selling and just hodling it for forever. But the deeper that I get into it, the more people I talk to, the more resources I consume, it really goes beyond just the money, doesn't it? Like it's a complete mindset shift. I recently just have been talking about the concept of low time preference. And I did a video on buy now, pay laters and like girl math and just the debt culture that we have in society. It's so reflective of what's going on in our economy at the time and what's going on as a repercussion in our culture. So, is there something that, kind of shocked you in sort of the same way when you were learning about Bitcoin that you were just like, wow, like this is more than just the money and the asset?
That for me was getting into Bitcoin entrepreneurship. And specifically, my role was being that head of business operator. It wasn't even a head at first, right? I was an intern. And seeing one, Bitcoin's global, two, there's real people involved and they're lovely. Three, it's applicable to, right? I love Pepe. And so it's not the coin Pepe, but I love what Pepe represents, which is anything to anybody, right? And um, in Bitcoin art, that was a big part of kind of 2021, 2, and 3 for me, which was seeing Bitcoin can mean so much to so, many different people and they're all right. I, wanting a career in fun, found that. And so I didn't have to work behind a desk. I do, but a cubicle per se. And I could go pursue the life that I wanted. I think it clicked that Bitcoin gave me control of my time and my life back, right? And I could now go pursue my dreams.
For some of the students who might be wanting the same thing as you, wanting a career in fun or entrepreneurship, what do you have to say about Bitcoin, if they're still just unaware of that?
Bitcoin is a blank canvas, right? To you to, it's, I don't like finishing the analogy, but for you to paint on, right? And you can do it any which way that you desire. If you don't see yourself as an entrepreneur, it's okay, breathe, right? It is scary. It's a growth mindset. I believe everybody can be, right? Everybody is a creator and has agency. With Bitcoin, in the fiat world, you live within the rules of others, right? And in Bitcoin, you can create your own. And that for Gen Z and the younger generation, it's exciting generally to have this idea that I can be me and I can determine what value I want to bring to the world. It's also incredibly intimidating, right? And I understand that that takes time. Don't feel like you have to rush into it. Understand, to your point, the low time preference, right? It's baby steps at first, and those over time, really add up to a lot of proof of work that hopefully you find yourself enjoying, how you're spending your time.
What about beyond just Bitcoin? What about, mindset and the skills or kind of the things you had to tell yourself in order to keep going with entrepreneurship?
Yeah. Entrepreneurship is a roller coaster every day. It's something that I enjoy because I'm generally creative. I love to make different connections. And in an entrepreneurial organization, you get to be free, right? You have the liberty often to apply your own perspective to problem solving. I'm big form and function, right? There's beauty to be designed and there's problems to be solved. And so with Bitcoin, I guess answering this without talking about Bitcoin, entrepreneurship is to me the greatest complement to Bitcoin, right? They share a lot of similarities. There's risk taking, there's belief in low time preference, there's some value to be held and captured in the market that you yourself, by taking action, can seize. And it takes belief in self, it takes belief in the future. And so entrepreneurs and Bitcoiners, they have so much in common. I think for me, it was the fact that Bitcoin gave me the base to go and build without concern of my financial situation or financial insecurity. Being on a Bitcoin standard, I was then able to build for the long term, right? I didn't need to build a startup that monetized right away. I didn't have to go to venture capitalists and say, I need your money, save me, right? I was able to build community first, culture first, right? Focus on delivering value. And, over the long term, you can build something that's really powerful. Bitcoin did that, you know? So that was really exciting.
Yeah, that's awesome to hear. Had a conversation with Khalif, the guy who runs the Real Hard Money podcast a while back. And one thing that he said was that Bitcoin takes care entirely of the money and lets you focus on what you want to focus on. And I think just hearing him say that, it was so groundbreaking for me because it's when you really realize that I think finances are keeping a lot of Gen Z from doing what it is that they actually want to do. And as a result, from entrepreneurship. And I really do see a future, with the introduction of AI and the job markets changing, specifically in engineering and computer science. My degree is in computer science, and a lot of my friends are the same, or they're going into finance and econ. And, Bitcoin and AI, they really, really revolutionize these fields. So being able to have our hands on a tool like Bitcoin so early on that we can, hop on it now, and by the time we graduate in a few years, we have the room to take some time to figure it out and look at what it is that you actually want to do. So last thing before we wrap this up is, I mean, what's your kind of overall message to Gen Z who's kind of in the same situation as you were when you were graduating, or as I might be now, just going into a world that's completely changing and no one really knows what it's going to look like?
I want to double down on what you just said, where Bitcoin takes this concern of money not necessarily out of the equation immediately, but what do you do with your money? What do you do with your investments out of the equation? That is incredibly liberating, right? And Bitcoin for me turned me into a minimalist, financially speaking or investment speaking, where I invest in, one asset and I can be calm, right? If you own crypto or you own equities or you own something other than Bitcoin, you have to worry about selling that asset, right? And that takes up mind share. It distracts you, right? It could be fun. There's a lot of ways to have fun. My final message to Gen Zers would be have confidence in your approach and path when others may not make you feel so confident, right? We all have very intelligent beings. Doesn't matter where you are on the IQ curve, right? Being here, being on this earth at this time, right? You have your own agency and belief, and Bitcoiners are here to support you, right? The Bitcoin Culture Hub, I am, you are. If you're a Bitcoiner and you hear this, if there's anyone that you think that could support you in your path, reach out to them. They're more than likely willing to support you. And it's the snowball, right? Each small step. So I have confidence in you. You should have confidence in yourself. Yeah.
That's a great note to leave it here. I mean, I feel so inspired just listening to this. So, one question and last question, because I know we're kind of getting to the time limit now. I like to ask everyone this when they come on, and I'm just wondering if there's one resource that you would recommend to anyone who's starting out with Bitcoin, like a book or a podcast, or maybe even point them back to Culture Hub.
I was
What
gonna
would
say,
that resource be?
don't do that to me. I'm gonna chill. No. Uh, it would be Bitcoin Culture Hub. But besides Bitcoin Culture Hub, it's a tough read, but it's on many people's favorite books of all time is The Sovereign Individual. So that book for me, it's about the transition to the information age. It was written, in the 90s. Like this is something that was like The Simpsons. Like they just predicted the future and they were on it, right? I think everybody that reads through that, whether you're a Bitcoiner or not, that is going to help you more so to what we discussed today. A lot of it is not Bitcoin specific, right? It doesn't talk about Bitcoin. It didn't know that it was going to exist. And it's really about your mindset and, the personal growth journey. So I think that's a great resource for everybody to start with.
Yeah, I haven't read that one yet, and part of the reason is because it's a dense read, and I've heard it's a dense read, so I've kind of put it off my list for after the semester. But I will link that in the description, and yeah, if you're listening to this, definitely go read that. Thanks so much, Kyle, for coming on. I mean, this was a great conversation, and I'm so happy I got to hear your journey and your pursuit of having a career in fun. I mean, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah. I appreciate everything you're doing and having me on. I will say one final thing, which is we are working with the Bitcoin Student Network to build out their infrastructure for the network. So if you're a student, we have the UW-Madison club president, as well as many other club presidents being a part of this community to kind of build this platform for you, with you, by you, right? And so hoping to deliver that this fall. We're really excited to kind of give students a platform to stand on. So cheering you guys on.
I'm really looking forward to that. And I can't wait to see, where obviously the student network is going to go, but where the culture hub and where Bitcoin is going to go. I think we have such a bright future ahead of us. And I know I sound like a, an older person saying this, but we really do. We do have such a bright future, and there's so much room for entrepreneurship and innovation. So if you're listening to this, if you're watching this, take what Kyle said and give some thought into it. It's possible to have a career in fun. It's possible to do what you want to do, and let Bitcoin take care of how you're going to finance it, of how you're going to afford it. And yeah, I mean, I think that's it from me. Thanks again for coming on, Kyle.
Yeah, thank you for having me. You're doing a great job. Keep it up. It's really inspiring to see, the younger generation take the reins. It's puts a smile on my face. So thank you.
Thank you. And I will see everyone else. I'll see you next week. Until then, stay curious, stay skeptical, and stay orange pelt.